Oh, it's cool. And on to effects. Obviously, I know your use of effects is very different, or your approach, because you like very smaller boards, don't you? Whereas I've got quite a big board and stuff. But you're getting a larger board these days, I see. So tell us about your use of effects and what you like and so forth.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm already with this instrument. I'm already taking a guitar amp and a bass amp to the gig, so I'm already hauling quite a bit more gear and all the cables and stuff like that that entails as well to the gig. So I'm not, and I gig pretty often in normal non-COVID times. I gig pretty often, probably about 5 times a week, and so I'm constantly going back and forth, back and forth. So I need my setup and breakdown to be quick. So I like small amps. I like small everything, small effects. If I bring effects, don't even bring effects to all things. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I think it's a nice challenge to play a whole 3 hour gig with no effects at all and just reverb and I think there's a lot of beauty in that. And then you go to the just so you don't have to rely on your effects. And then when you get back to your pedal board, then you have all these different tone candies that you can play with. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah, so normally I have a small board. I just got a Pedal Train 2 board.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the exact dimensions of that. So it's definitely the largest board I've ever had. And it's a lot of fun. It gave me room to put on a tuner pedal finally, which is nice. I got a cord plate black. And I'll tell you about all these pedals actually. Yeah, so my approach to effects, I don't like stepping on things while I'm playing because I'm busy. I'm busy,
Yeah.
man. I'm doing things. So and a lot of times my left foot is keeping the beat and my hands are doing this and that. So to step on something else, especially a wah where your left foot's doing this and then your right wah is doing something different, it gets crazy. So I don't
Hey,
really like to step on effects at the time. Yeah.
hey, Nate, I can hear lots of drummers now going, we have to do it.
Right, right. No, no, and I hear that. I hear that. I trust me. I'm sympathetic to the drummer, and I play a little bit of drums, just enough to know how hard it is. So I totally understand that. No, so I don't like to step on effects like for just one passage, like Osnoy or something like that. I think it's really cool, and I love people that do that, but it's too much work for me. So at the most, I'll maybe turn on and off an effect during the bridge. So I'll have an effect for the bridge section to kind of separate it from the rest of the section and then turn it off. That's kind of the most I do. But other than that, I kind of like effects to just be tones. I look at them all as just kind of different instruments. And I don't have all the tones that I'd like, but I have quite a few. So starting off with my signal chain, I use the EP booster from Exotic Effects at 18 volts, and I really like the tone of that, and it also gives me a little bit of volume control right on my board. So it does change the tone if I turn the volume up and down, but it's a nice volume control and it's a nice thing. So that's always on. That runs. I'm going to actually move this around, I think, a little bit because I was just reading the instruction manual for the first time. I know we don't do that, but I thought I would actually read the instruction manual for the Plus audio pedal. And it says to put that at the front of the signal chain, and it's at the end right
Yeah.
now. So I might move some things around. But as it is, I got my EP booster going into a conspiracy theory, which is a clone from Way Huge Electronics. I just like a little bit of tube breakup grit, kind of
Yeah.
just like the old T-Bone Walker recordings, the old Kenny Burrell. That's really kind of the tone that I'm looking for, and I never get beyond that as far as grit goes. I don't really do distortion pedals or fuzz or anything like that. I
Yeah.
just like just a little bit. So I got my conspiracy theory, then I run that into a more audio phaser. My conspiracy. So here's clean. I might as well play this for a minute. That's clean. That's the reverb coming from the amp, and then just a little bit of grit with the conspiracy theory. So just a little bit of grit. I love my phaser pedal. This little more audio. I think it's a MXR phase knockoff. Just a really subtle kind of almost wah effect. I have it running
Yeah,
really,
it
really
is.
slow. I love the envelope filter that I just got. I'm still learning how to use envelope filters,
Yeah.
so occasionally I'll ask pedal plan like, hey, what envelope filter should I get? But honestly, I don't even know how to work the envelope filter I have as far as to get the perfect sound. So I got this Donner Deal envelope filter for real cheap, and it's doing what I want at the moment. little bit of wah. I really like
Yeah.
the natural tone to come out underneath that envelope.
Yeah.
So I don't like, and I don't like too much.
Yeah.
Just it's a little, it gets old really fast for me.
I've got
So
I've got the Keeley Neutrino, which I really enjoy, and I love the sound of it, and it's hypersensitive, but I don't play enough, or the bands I'm in don't play enough music that I can use it in. Unfortunately, did you also?
right.
I'd love to
Yeah. I mean,
use it
it's one
more.
of those effects that, like I said, you can just get tired of real quick. And when is it appropriate? You're not going to
Yeah,
use it on a ballad. You're not going to use it on a hard driving, metal song or rock song. So so you use it on funk, but then it's almost cliche. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't mess with it too much, but it's nice. Like I said, I just got this Korg pitch black tuner, which I like a lot. This thing's kind of neat. I got a little volume control, which is nice, the Dunlop mini volume. And that's right next to my Blue Hippo analog chorus from Way Huge, which I have set up like a Leslie pedal.
Oh yeah,
And for me, that's kind of a nice Leslie sound.
it is. Yeah.
It works for me.
Well, when you said the other day, and I suggested getting a Leslie pedal, and you said, "Oh, you got that chorus for that." The chorus I've got doesn't really give those Leslie sounds, so I was like, "Oh, right, really?" But that sounds absolutely just like a Leslie, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's not bad. I got this chorus pedal. I endorse Dunlop, and which is MXR and Way Huge. It's the same company, so I endorse them. So they gave me this Blue Hippo chorus pedal. I'm like, I don't really use chorus pedals. Like, I don't even I don't want that chorus sound. I can't think of a time when I've heard chorus in a recording and been like, ooh, I like that. I need that. I just personally don't like it. But when I was able to dial it in, it only has 2 knobs, so I'm impressed that it can really dial this in. But yeah, I like. I've had a bunch of different Leslies, but I kind of like that Blue Hippo.
But I think Leslie suits your style of playing because it's almost organ. You play, like you said about the piano and stuff, and you're bringing kind of the piano playing and guitaring into one. And then sort of the Leslie is very associated with keys and things like that. So yeah, I think it's very appropriate for your playing style, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you've got, and I love players like Jimmy Smith and Joey DeFrancesco, Dr. John, all these players. I'm a big fan of that kind of sound. And it's really fun on my instrument because these effects are just going through my 5 guitar strings because I have separate outputs here. I got different EMG pickups, 5-string guitar pickup, and a 3-string bass pickup. So all these effects are just the guitar, so then I can have the basses clean.
Oh,
wow. So then you can do kind of really nice, like a. Yeah, so you can kind of do 2 things. So it's really fun to get that split sound. It just accentuates those kind of 2 instrument things. So yeah, so I got 2 outputs. So I sometimes, if I have to, I'll run these both into like a little 2-to-1 cable, and I'll plug it into just 1 amp. But pretty much all the time, I'm running into 2 separate things.
So you've got 2 amps.
Yeah. I have a bass amp here and the bass, I'm running a little TC Electronics bass compressor.
Oh,
just to get a little bit of tightness. It's not a huge difference with it on and off, but when I dig in, sometimes without the compressor, it can be too boomy with certain frequencies, and the bass compressor kind of helps dial that in. So yeah, I don't usually. Occasionally, I'll do like a distortion on the bass. Like that's a time when we'll do like a more aggressive distortion, like a fuzz or full-on distortion on the bass, and then do like just an overdrive on the guitar. So it's neat to kind of get those 2 different tones, those 2 different colors on the same instrument.
Wow, excellent. So with regards to other guitarists that are using effects, I mean, you mentioned Joe Pass, and you've also mentioned Metallica. You like Metallica, and the 2 are worlds apart. But I mean, obviously, is there any other bands in the sort of the Metallicas and stuff like that, or other bands in different genres that you listen to and enjoy?
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. I enjoy talking about music quite a bit, and especially in these days when everything here in the States is so divisive, you got to really worry what topic. You can't talk about masks. You can't talk about COVID. You can't talk about shutdown. You can't talk about government. You can't talk about racism, like because it's so divisive. And I just don't want to even start that, you know. So what can you talk about? Let's argue about. Let's talk about music and let's argue about it. You know, let's have a conversation where at the end of the conversation we don't agree, but we also don't hate each other. That is really kind of the goal. And unfortunately, in 2020, there haven't been a lot of conversations like that. So I really enjoy talking about music. So yeah, so there's a ton of music that I listen to. My favorite stuff is probably funky bluesy stuff. I mean, T-Bone Walker is a big deal to me. John Lee Hooker, not John Lee Hooker, Lightning Hopkins, John Lee Hooker too, but Lightning Hopkins and T-Bone Walker are really kind of the top for me. Muddy Waters as well. Just really, really like that kind of stuff. I love hip hop music as well. 90s hip hop, 2000s hip hop, from Tribe Called Quest beats and
Hmm.
Black Alicious and all kinds of stuff like that. I like a lot of metal. I love Metallica. I haven't been into Metallica the last few albums, but I don't really care what Metallica does now. There's nothing they can do to screw up the amazing legacy that is their first like 5 albums.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just insane how the quality of songwriting, the quality of performance, the quality of riffs, the quality of solos, the quality of tone. I mean, there's a lot of people who talk this and that about Metallica, but they just made some incredible music. Never heard this side of Black Sabbath.
Hmm.
So, but Black Sabbath and Megadeth are also really, really big influences on me. I really like those groups a lot, and listen to some other stuff as well, and some modern things. Like I'll listen to Animals as Leaders a little bit, but I'll more appreciate the modern stuff than listen to it.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate what a lot of these bands are doing, but I don't really listen to it. So I'm always interested though in finding new music that's cool. But one of the things about new music is it has to be really good, because I hear you're telling me to go check out this band, but there's still like 20 John Coltrane albums that I haven't lived with. You know, there's still 50 Miles Davis albums that I haven't really dug into. I mean, and you talk about different musical influence. I think Miles Davis kind of really at the very top as far as musical influence. And I spent years listening to Kind of Blue and Bitches Brew and just so many different albums. And you just get so into it, but there's so much of that stuff to listen to. So I really like jazz stuff. Interesting jazz stuff. I like all kinds of world music from all over the place. Anything that's interesting, especially like Cuban music, that kind of thing is really neat. I don't
Hmm.
really listen to Mexican or Spanish music. I have a Spanish surname, Lopez, so I hear a lot of people. I can't tell you how much music racism I get. I get hired for Cinco de Mayo for places. I'm like, I don't play Spanish guitar. I don't play Mexican music at all. But a lot of times I'll get hired just on these days just because of my last name, just because I'm brown. So that's frustrating because I don't really play that kind of music. But I do like it and appreciate it. I love bands like Primus, Primus, Amazing Mr. Bungle, stuff like that. Really, so many. I'm sure I'm missing like 100 different bands. I like most things, anything that's interesting, anything that you can listen to. Like I said, mostly instrumental music, because I think a lot of vocal music is a lot of just baby, 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 and they're not actually saying a damn thing. It's
Hmm.
just they're just putting vocals because they feel they have to put vocals out. And to a certain degree, they're right. I mean, the popular music in this country, in the world, is vocal music, so that they can sing along. And if you can't sing along, a lot of people don't even think of instrumental music as music.
Hmm.
You know, I'll ask people, what's your favorite instrumental music? And they think, and they're like, oh, well, by instrumental music, you mean soundtracks, right? Or you mean classical music, right? Because those are the only two types of instrumental music there is. Jazz doesn't exist. Instrumental funk doesn't exist. You know, all this other stuff doesn't exist. So that's interesting. But so I like instrumental music, anything interesting, anything worth listening to. I'm not a fan of a lot of current pop music because there's not a lot there. I do a lot of I do a lot of arrangements of music, and once you strip down the production, you strip down the vocals, you take all that stuff away, is there music there, or is it nothing? Is it just the production?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's just nothing, unfortunately.
Well, it's funny. I mean, you mentioned I've just written some notes here and stuff, and you mentioned appreciating music. And I think when you do play an instrument, I think you do listen to music very differently.
Oh yeah,
If
absolutely.
you don't, do you know what I mean? Because you are listening to the guitar a lot more, you want more focused on it and listen to how it's being played and how it's in the context of the song. You just can't help doing it, can you?
Oh yeah. Well, when I was first started playing bass, most bass playing is just, and that's most bass playing, and that's fine. And that serves a good purpose, and I think there's a lot of value to that. But when I first started playing the bass guitar, I was just fascinated with what was possible, what can be done. I know most people are doing this, but what can be done? So then you find out Stanley Clark is doing all this amazing stuff. And you're like, oh, I got to check this out. You find John Patitucci is doing these incredible melodies, all this stuff. You find out Victor Wooten's got something otherworldly going on with his thumb. What the hell's going on there? So you start to just find out, I think, what's possible, and then that inspires you. And I think for me, inspires you for sure. Inspires me a lot to hear that kind of stuff. But I don't listen to just guitar music. I listen to a lot of different types of music. But I think you're right. As a musician, we listen to it. I think for a lot of different reasons we listen differently, but for one big reason is that we're just waiting for the next cool riff or sound or pedal to steal. You know, like they say, good musicians borrow and great musicians steal. So I'm blatantly waiting to hear the next cool riff and like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I got to go home and do that. I bet I could do some version of that. So you're right. I mean, we listen very harshly and objectively in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like one of the best compliments I can get when I'm playing a gig is, and I get it all the time, is a guitar player sitting there being like, he'll just be staring at me, not smiling. And I'm like, okay, cool. This guy is actually listening. This guy's into it. He's critiquing. He's engaged, or she's engaged. This is really neat. So I really like that kind of thing. That's just how we are, I guess, as guitar players. Yeah.
Saying that, I mean, you mentioned instrumental music. When I listen to the instrumental music, I'm loving Brian Eno at the minute, and that's all electronics. And even his Roger Eno. He's bringing pianos into it. He's bringing guitars and other instruments to make these beautiful landscapes of instrumental music. It's fantastic.
Well, I think, yeah, no, on your note earlier about not as much musicianship, the problem is that musicianship is not the focus for music. Catchy and poppy and replayable and instantly recognizable is what's valued, I think, in pop music. And musicianship just isn't valued. Maybe singing is valued, but not even so much that. I mean, look at Billie Eilish. I'm not saying anything bad about Billie Eilish, but she's not the most, she's not a vocalist that's expressing herself as strongly as other people are. So it's interesting, but it's good. It's good. She's still making good music because it's interesting, it's different, it's poppy. But again, you can't hear. There's no solos on her albums. You can't hear anything like that. So we don't hear that as much. Yeah. So that's hard for sure.
Yeah, I think musical tastes are shifting. There's the focus, and there's a different perspective on it these days. That's for definite.